Well, welcome on this beautiful Friday in Kansas. We've had a lot of moisture, but that's good. Happy Friday. John Jacobsen here hosting the great Bill Pracht, the head of East Kansas Agri-Energy, that wonderful ethanol renewable fuels plant in Garnett, Kansas, our neighbor to the south here from our studios in Ottawa. You are listening to the East Kansas Agri-Energy Farm and Ag Report featuring Bill Pracht. Bill, happy high noon.
Yep, it's a good day today, and got some showers last night, but it looks like it's going to dry out next week, and some of the guys that need to get caught up on our farming, and a lot of them do, will get that opportunity. So we're always glad to have the right opportunities come around for us.
Absolutely. And Bill, there's been so much going on. We're hot off the press as this show is really about as current as you can get. Yesterday, Thursday, a big group at the White House met, some ag folks with the president. Can you give us an update there with your great intel?
Well, the president had a meet, a dinner in the White House lawn in the Rose Garden last night, and had farmers there, and he had previously announced that he was giving $11 billion in aid to row crop and specialty crop farmers to help alleviate some of the high prices that we've had for inputs during the war that's been going on since February. So always whenever if farmers can be invited to the Rose Garden, that's a good thing. And so took a minute or two out of his day, or an hour, and had quite a group there, it looks like. And I know one of the guys that was there. I don't know him very well, but I do know that one of the guys that was there, and kind of looking around this morning to try to find out who was there. So, but anyway, it's always good to keep agriculture in the front light, and the president seems to be a supporter of agriculture, and we're good for that. So I'm glad he had it, and the funds that come out of it will be good for the farmers, and so with that, also a couple other things that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
USDA released their ag practices and for feedstocks for the 45Z program yesterday. We're just getting emails on that this morning, so I really don't have any details on it, except for no-till and cover crop are two of the big contributors to reducing CI, as we thought they would be, and so we'll just have to dive through this stuff and see how much that is. It doesn't look like for 26, so we'll have to that'll be on our docket for as we go into the 27 planting.
And Bill, there's so much we're awaiting yet. I thought it might come out here before noon, but we are waiting the Supreme Court of the United States to weigh in with that big Roundup lawsuit. And of course, that could go into next week. There are many huge decisions. The court usually drops those at the very end. We might still get something this afternoon, but that's a big case. And Bill, just want to circle back to a few topics we had viewed previously with you. Let's go back to China. When that China deal was announced that would help our farmers sell more to China, there wasn't a lot of details and documentation other than the verbalizations. Have we seen that fleshed out at all with any follow-up at this juncture, Bill, that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, John. I do think we have had about $1 drop in soybean price, and last week it looked like China was in as a buyer of beans for the commitments that they had made. So it's, remember, they made some commitments prior to the last Trump G meeting, and so they're following in. So they are buying some, and so that's good, and I expect, and they're like everybody else, when they see a drop in the price of something, and other countries do the same thing too. They get in, and that's when they're purchasing, and that's what we do on our everyday life too. And back to the Roundup thing, they did come out.
Bill, with breaking news. Bill, tell us what you know about this. I was so fixated on the two big immigration rulings that came down, and then there was one other ancillary related ruling. You're our ag guy. Talk to us about that.
They ruled 7-2 that Bayer cannot be sued in state courts for failure to warn, not to have a failure to warn the possibility of cancer on the label, because the federal regulators find that unlikely. So it's not a federal regulation, and therefore the states can't have a regulation that's different than the federal. So 7-2, it was bipartisan. The two that were in dissent were Justice Brown Jackson and then Justice Gorsuch. So bipartisan on the dissent, bipartisan on the majority side of the ruling as well.
Indeed, boy, the dissent. That's a metaphorical marriage of strange legal bedfellows.
Absolutely.
And
it is,
but yet 7-2. That's an overwhelmingly majoritarian position, and so that definitely sets out. It's not a 5-4 split verdict. That's a landmark ruling now, and everybody can now kind of factor in their business and legal decision making based on steering that case.
Absolutely, and I think too that where you see the more bipartisanship in both majority and minority opinions is,
yes,
it gets to state rights, and
exactly.
Those are more bipartisan feelings amongst the court, and this ruling puts it in black and white that they are certainly differences of opinion inside the Supreme Court on some states' rights. That's for sure.
There are, what breaking and cutting edge always from the omnibus boss of all things ag, Bill Pracht, the Chief Executive Officer of East Kansas Agri-Energy, LLC, that magnificent renewable fuels ethanol plant down in Garnett. And Bill, just a quick tease here for our audience. How can they find out more about you guys? Because you're one of the great stories commercially, industrially in our state of Kansas and in the Midwest.
Yeah, the best thing is to go to our website, ekaellc.com, and we've updated it here recently in the last year or so, and there's some really good stuff about us, about our industry on there, and we have links to our industry partners, links to what we've done to help promote our industry. So those things it's all important. It's all part of our process here, and it's all what everybody in agriculture has to do is keep educating the public on what we do for them, because it goes back to, we're celebrating the 250th year of our country, and it goes back to, when the very first people came to the U.S. It's, agriculture has been number one since then, and still is in a lot of our hearts, and a lot of people don't have that understanding. But, when we go back that far, and, George Washington was a great farmer, and so was Thomas Jefferson. So those two things should be in the limelight as we celebrate 250.
Bill, you've read my mind. You must have done the Vulcan mind meld. This perfectly segues into a little vignette I'd like to touch on now. The uniqueness and the greatness of America, I believe, is rooted in our agrarian roots and the Homestead Act, Bill. And what other nation is there on this planet in world history that literally has fed the world and had the resources and the willpower to literally save the world from two major famines that both occurred after the successive world wars, 1 and 2, while the communists in the Soviet Union and communist China were starving their people, sometimes deliberately. Stalin in the Soviet Union, in the great terror famines, including in Ukraine, even before World War II, Robert Conquest, I believe, has documented that perhaps 30 million of their own people essentially starved either deliberately or through gross incompetence. And Bill, juxtapose that with an America that has fed the world and freed the world from famine twice. What a story. We are not the same. America is exceptional. We should take great pride in that, Bill.
We should. And, you look back on how this country's evolved and often wonder, of those people that first, started going west from the East Coast and, what they had to see and, over the next horizon or crossing the next river when they got to the Mississippi River. And that is all just mind-boggling how they did it back in that day and time and how far this country has came, and we're relatively young as countries go on worldwide scale, especially from the Europeans and Asian countries. So we've really accomplished a lot in these 250 years. That's no doubt about it.
Well, Bill, that's so true, and it's really amazing when you think about how young this country is. There are actually 45 men who have occupied the presidency. They call it 47 presidencies because both Cleveland and Trump are serving non-consecutive second terms. But Bill, 45 men, and I have been there on this planet since Eisenhower, which means I've lived through a third of our presidency. So this is definitely a young country. And there's so many. Bill, I just think about freezing on the prairie during these winters here and how people actually just survived the bitter cold. I mean, Bill, these were heroic efforts, including these strong frontiers women.
Absolutely. And in the 1860s, my family started in Chase County, Kansas in 1864.
Antebellum before the end of the Civil War. Wow.
They, two brothers, one of them would be great-grandfather of my dad, and walked from Council Bluffs, Iowa, and ended up on Middle Creek, settling on Middle Creek in west of Strong City. So, and they, the story goes that they, stayed by the creeks and the rivers so they could hide from the Indians, but you and I both know how long a trick it is to Council Bluffs from here, and so if they told you and I today that we had to walk from Council Bluffs to Chase County, Kansas, I'd think that we'd be hard pressed to do that, wouldn't we?
Bill, it's just incredible, and not riding horses, ladies and gentlemen, or jalopies or buggies, but they were walking. There's so many great episodic recountings of this in music. There's a great old television series. It was number one in the nation for many years on NBC. It was the first television station in living color. It was Bonanza, starring Lauren Green, and Lauren Green cut several musical albums. Some was spoken word, but he had a great baritone voice. And with Pernell Roberts and Dan Blocker and Michael Landon, they cut songs, and a lot of those songs talked about taming the West, civilizing the West, including with climate and water issues. So Tales and Legends of the American West by Lauren Green, and so many great John Wayne movies about the taming of the West. The Searchers, perhaps the greatest Western ever. John Ford's trilogy of Rio Grande and Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. How the West Was Won is magnificent in telling the story of the expansion of the West. And they fought climate, they fought hostile tribes. There was a lot going on there. Bill, one thing to me that I think is just very fascinating about it, again, you look at the Homestead Act. The great American West was actually sparsely populated. In terms of people per square mile, even with the tribes, you had tiny, tiny populations versus the millions of acres of land that expanded from east to west on this continent as it was being explored and adventured, beginning with Lewis and Clark and the Mormon Trail and all these folks, the Spanish missions. And that idea of if you can gut it out and hold the land and make it productive over 5 years, that 160 acres is yours. And how many people moved west of the Mississippi River? That was that Homestead Act really keyed on that land west of the Mississippi River, including up north of here and into Kansas. And Bill, what I think is amazing about that is this. People say, well, was that fair? Well, it was so fair that it actually helped eradicate slavery because the idea of giving individual farmers access to 160 acres of land which no one was on, which no one was working, which no one had laid claim to, all this sparsely populated vacant land. What that did was that was a deliberate ploy to prevent Southern corporate farmers from buying up all that land and use slave labor to run those like they were running their plantation. So actually, the Homestead Act was a great act for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was to crush slavery. But it was also so great, I say it built the great American middle class. It gave thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans the opportunity, and these included largely immigrants. These were the immigrants that were moving west and looking for this land. The Irish railroad towns, the Asian people, the Germanic, the Scandinavian. You had immigrants that went to their different climate zones, so to speak. But Bill, that really helped build the American middle class, and I think it made this country unique in that our food supply is owned not by the government, not by corporatists, but by regular mom and pop families by the thousand. No one can commandeer our food supply. And these are stewards of the land that love the land and will keep it safe and good custodians and keep plentiful to feed America.
Absolutely. And all those things you said are right. And it moved across the country, and it's pretty amazing those cultural differences you just talked about are still there, in our communities.
Yes.
And all across. And you can, there's a lot of different cultural communities here in Kansas and all across the Midwest, and it came just from that. And those first settlers got out there, sent word back to their families, and more people kept coming and coming and coming because there was, it's called America, the land of opportunity. And they found a little bit of opportunity and found a way, and no matter how tough it was, they found a way to make it, and which brought us all the way to where we're at today. And but I admire those first people that settled this country, and you mentioned it earlier that, about the women that came along and how that decision had to be made that, you were going, riding a covered wagon 12, 15 miles a day for how many ever days till you got to a spot you liked and homesteaded that spot would be quite a journey, that's for sure.
Literally delivering babies on covered wagons, and you can read about this also. Great authors like Laura Ingalls Wilder with her Tales from Up North, Little House on the Prairie, etc. Willa Cather, the great author from our neighbor in Nebraska, My Antonia and Death Comes to the Archbishop. Magnificent tomes about living here in the prairie in the American West. And of course, if you ask people who've come in from abroad to Kansas City for the FIFA World Cup soccer, their impressions of Kansas were forged by that 1939 epic, The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and Toto in the tornado scene. But in Wisconsin, that was an ag family, and how dearly she loved her farm home. There's no place like home. The opulent, multi-chromatic technicolor of Oz paled in comparison to her black and white Kansas landscape that she loved dearly, living with her aunt and uncle. And there's just a tapestry of great culture woven into all of this. Dodge City, Kansas. Bill, I still say, as much as I love Bonanza, the greatest Western epic of all time was Gunsmoke, longest running drama on television, 20 years, plus 15 years on radio prior to that. Great episodic morality tales there. Bill, it's just amazing. And I'll tell you, Bill, I still hearken back to American exceptionalism. Guys, nobody has more fertile land than Brazil or Ukraine, and yet they've not fed the world. They've had trouble feeding themselves. Bill, what is it about America that has allowed us not just to feed ourselves and never, thanks be to God, never have to encounter famine on this continent? And we've been through difficulties, dust bowls, and things like that, but we've just been so fortunate. We've been blessed. And what is it that has allowed us to feed the world, like countries like Brazil and Ukraine they've been barely surviving over their histories. What is that unique greatness about America? Is it the freedom here? Is it? I think it is the freedom, really, that and the ability to build that middle class so that neither the government nor a big corporation owns all the food.
That's right. Part of it is our geography,
Yes. Great
and we
point. Great
have
point.
great geography for raising crops, raising cattle, raising everything that we need. We have it. A lot of countries around the world don't have all the geography or all that we do, but the geography is, and then just our founding fathers, where it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and all that is you have a life to live. And they gave us the liberty to do it, and the pursuit of happiness boils down to if you're happy with what you're doing. And if you're happy being a farmer, great. And, you have the opportunity to make a living being a farmer. If you were, want to be a doctor, you have that opportunity here. And I don't know, in the communist countries, I don't think everybody has those same opportunities. But that's the uniqueness of America. And that's what helps us be what we are, is that we're very blessed with natural resources and just super blessed that the founding fathers gave us those freedoms to go out and pursue that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Brilliant points by Bill Pracht, EO of East Kansas Agri-Energy, LLC, that outstanding ethanol renewable fuels plant in Garnett, and we are so proud to be sponsoring his show here with his Ag Report. Bill, everything that you've said hits home. I want to conclude with this today. We've got about 4 minutes left. American exceptionalism. Ronald Reagan used to always say, America is not good because we're great. He said, America is great because the American people are good. And Bill, I'm going to talk about 3 Midwesterners: Dwight Eisenhower from Kansas, Herbert Hoover from Iowa, Harry Truman from Missouri. And those 3 men were so integral in liberating the world from tyranny and feeding the world, because after World War I and World War II, Herbert Hoover led the commissions to prevent famine in Europe. Eisenhower freed Europe, and Harry Truman, in a bipartisan episode of magnanimous generosity, called Herbert Hoover out of mothballs and retirement exile to lead a second time after Eisenhower won World War II as general, and then Truman was president. Hoover came back and fed Europe Hoover meals by the millions. America, our food and our logistical support in marshaling European food saved Europe from famine twice, the world from famine twice. We should be very, very proud of that, I think, Bill.
I think you're exactly right. And, that spirit of helping those, in World War I, we didn't have to go over there and do that. In World War II, how people were on the fence of whether we should or not until the invasion of Pearl Harbor,
Right.
put us in the war.
Right.
But after it was over, it was America that reached their hand out to help them rebuild. And so that's the great thing about our country. Had we not done that, and we wouldn't have had to, but had we not done that, it would have been horrific. But then that goes back to the spirit of our nation, and that's why America is the greatest place to be on earth.
Exactly. Bill nails it again. Not only have we exported our food to feed the world, but just our administrative expertise. Think of guys like Hoover and Eisenhower and Truman and their administrative expertise in making sure that they could keep food production going in Europe, as ravaged as it was from war. And Douglas MacArthur, essentially as viceroy, as head of Japan for years post-war. Instead of crushing our enemies, he rebuilt Japan. He maintained their emperor. He did not disgrace their culture. He honored it. And what other nation has turned their vanquished enemies into prosperous, safe nations? I mean, Germany and Japan led the way in the 70s and 80s with economic resurgence, Bill, thanks to the generosity of the United States.
Yep, and thank goodness they did, and it's just too bad some countries out there today don't see that example that was set and do the same thing.
Exactly. Well, Bill, this has been great to be with you. You've been listening to the East Kansas Agri-Energy LLC report, the great renewable fuels ethanol plant. Bill Pracht, the CEO, every Friday on with us for his ag and farm report. Bill, I'll give you the last word today. We got a minute to go. Your final reports.
Well, just as we close in on the 4th of July weekend, we'll have another show next week.
We will.
We'll, wishing everybody the best. And to my farmer friends that I know several need to get caught up and finish planting some beans and get hay put up and stuff, the best to them and for them to be safe as they going to have a busy week in front of them this week.
Amen, Bill. We are a blessed nation. We are grateful for divine providence, and it's very humbling. So let's honor that by continuing to be the good stewards that Kansas have been. I want to thank Bill. I want to encourage people to grab this podcast. Go to KOFO.com here on 1220 103.7 for the replay of this show. Just click that podcast tab and East Kansas Agri-Energy Report with Bill Pracht. You can find it and share it with your friends. And we'll be back next Friday, same time, same channel here on the Blowtorch of the East Central Plains, your country music giant, and your home and away voice of the Kansas City Royals. For Bill Pracht and my great engineer, Sean Torres, this is John Jacobsen saying bye-bye.